Hey scholars, welcome back. Go away. Today we're going to be covering the SAT math portion of the test.
Yay!
So, yeah, there's nothing else to say. Just keep watching if you want to raise your math score. You tell him, Clancy. So you're probably here because you want to figure out how to study quickly for your SAT, or you're just embarking your SAT study adventure. So this video is an overview of how you can guide your studying for the SAT. Something I should say is that all of your SAT tutors out there are going to say, take practice tests, take practice tests. And I do highly recommend doing that. Although this video isn't going to center around practice tests, okay? But College Board and Khan Academy have a collab, and they've offered this great resource where you take a practice test and they tell you which topics you could improve on based on your score, and then they give you individualized guidance on how to move forward. And I find this to be a beautiful way to improve your score. However, in some situations, ain't nobody got time for that. You know what I mean? So what am I going to cover in this video? I took 2 or 3 practice tests recently, couple different kinds, and I took note of every single math topic that's on the exam. So I'm going to tell you every single topic that I saw with a brief description. Say there's a topic that you haven't seen in ages and you need to improve your knowledge on, then, you know, as they say, Google it, YouTube it. There's so many good YouTube resources out there, and I will list a couple down below. So keep watching to figure out which topics you can improve on in hopes of improving your math score little by little in the last minute, okay? Enjoy, my friends. So this is what you are given in the math portion. I would familiarize yourself with this reference table. So in the test, whenever you see any of these shapes, I would just go back to the reference table, look it up really quick, and then go return. You are also given a graphing calculator, and this is a Desmos calculator. So hopefully you're familiar with Desmos. I love Desmos. It's my favorite website ever. I'll give you some advice when we get there, but use this to your advantage. So there are 2 sections in the math portion of the SAT. They both have the same amount of time, the same amount of questions, 22 questions in about 35 minutes. So that will give you about 90 seconds per question. Some may take less, some may take more, but that is a great thing to keep in mind just to gauge how fast you're going, right? So according to the College Board, here is the content. So we have 35% of the test is algebra. So basic algebra, linear equations, functions, inequality systems. Then we have advanced math, that's what they call it, which is nonlinear functions, solving for expressions that are going to be several variables or not aligned, nonlinear. Those 2 make up most of the test, 70%. 15% is going to be data analysis and problem solving, which is going to be ratios, percentages, probability, statistics, that kind of vibe, right? And then 15%, finally, we have geometry and trigonometry, finding the area, finding lines and angles, and then finally circles. All right, so now let's just go into all of the topics. Okay, so 1, what you should know, review. The algebra content, which makes up 35%. So writing linear equations based on a situation. So key thing here is having a rate, which is a slope. So they'll give you a rate and then a initial fee. So being able to differentiate the numbers that they give you and figure out whether they are a slope or a y-intercept, and then assigning an equation to a situation. Interpreting linear graphs. So kind of a similar thing here. So rate indicates slope, or fee / one-time payment indicates the y-intercept. So when you look at the graph, you're being able to decipher what this graph means. That's kind of the backwards of that first topic. Okay, so let me just give you a quick example of what I mean there, because I did not explain that in the cutest way. So we have a graph, and we're going to refer to 15 and 16. Let us just read the question as we always do. We read it first. What does the c-intercept represent in the graph? So what is the y-intercept? If the y-intercept represents the point where x equals 0, and x represents the time, we have to figure out what the point is when time is equal to 0. So we would read these options and we'd get initial cost of renting the boat. Okay, so that is the total cost when x is equal to 0. Now we have to interpret graphs in order to figure out the linear relationship. Okay, so we know the y-intercept is 5, so it's either this one or this one. Now we just have to zoom in and figure out the slope. Slope is rise over run, so we go 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3, 4 over. And it is going to be 3/4. Okay. Interpreting linear equations in standard form and slope-intercept form. So with slope-intercept form, we have y equals mx plus b. That gives you slope and intercept. Standard form is different. It doesn't give you a slope or y-intercept. But it could give you some different information. For example, we have apples and bananas. We have 4 apples, 5 bananas, and we know that we paid $20 for all of the fruits. So then we're trying to figure out the costs of the apples. So we assign an x to the 4 apples and a y to the 5 bananas. I think that's the original one, but anyways, so that is kind of an example of how you can interpret it standard form. Easy, right? You got it. Okay, parallel and perpendicular lines. I have a recent video covering this. So if you need to review this, links below. Parallel and perpendicular lines. So parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have the opposite reciprocal. Solutions of linear systems. For graphs, if you look at a graph, figuring out how many solutions there are is going to be very it's definitely going to show up on the test, or given 2 equations, find the solution. So when you get 2 equations and you're finding the solution, I would just hop on Desmos. What does this even mean? Okay, so we're on Desmos. How did I get here? I went to desmos.com. We go to the graphing calculator, and this is the exact calculator that you are going to have access to on the exam. Our question is, the solution to the given system of equations is xy. What is the value of x plus y? Instead of spending all this time trying to solve this equation, I'm going to go to Desmos and I'm going to put 5x equals 15. And then I go to another line, and I do minus 4x plus y equals -2. Boom. It's graphs for us. We find the solution, 310. Now, it is not just finding the solution, it's finding what is the value of x plus y. So what we get is 3 plus 10. All right, next, finding a function when given an xy table, finding slope and y-intercept when given data points. You should review this slope equation. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then through that slope, you can find the y-intercept by plugging that slope into the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and then plugging in a given point. So boom, finding a function. Find the value of x when given an equation. Even though you should know how to solve linear equations by now, I'm just going to show you a little trick on Desmos, okay? So we get this question. If 4x plus 2 equals 12, what is the value of 16x plus 8? Okay, so the way I would do this, because I'm quick and speedy and with it, so I just literally plot the line that they gave me, the equation that they give me, and I get 2.5. And then I do 16 times 2.5, 40 plus 8. That was quick, 48. Even though you don't have to do it that way, that's another way you can use Desmos to your advantage. Finding x and y intercepts, that's another popular topic that the SAT writers like to ask about. So key thing here is that x-intercept is when y equals 0, y-intercept is when x equals 0. Very important. Exponential rules. Here are the exponential rules. Review them. I guess they're important, they're always important. linear inequalities. All right, guys, we are on Desmos. Yes, we are capable of doing linear inequalities on Desmos. All you gotta do is type in the equation. It gives you everything you need. You can do greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, greater than, less than, all of the above, guys. Use your tools and all of this will help you, okay? Okay, so now we're at the nonlinear advanced math portion. So 1 topic, factoring quadratic equations. Review this. There are a couple methods to do this, so I would advise you, if you need to review this, to go to a YouTube channel, Solving Quadratic Equations. And by doing that, you could either factor and solve for 0. Sometimes that's not always possible. So I would encourage you to memorize the quadratic formula. And honestly, sometimes if you're solving a quadratic equation, I would just hop to the quadratic formula right away, because that is always dependable. Linear versus exponential functions. I mean the meaning, knowing the meaning of that. So a linear, that would mean there's a constant increase, whereas exponential functions are not constant. So it is increasing by more and more and more as the increments get bigger and bigger and bigger. So review the meaning of that. Maybe a question will give you a bunch of data points and you have to identify whether it's linear or exponential. So if it's not linear, then it's most likely exponential. Same thing here, x and y intercept in a quadratic context or any other nonlinear functions. X equals 0 for y intercept, y equals 0 for x intercept. Finding the maximum or minimum of quadratics. X equals minus b over 2a. And then plug that in to find f of x. You guys got this one. Combining like terms. I think you got this one. Meaning of a discriminant in a quadratic. Okay, we're talking about a discriminant of a quadratic, which is b squared minus 4ac. If this value is positive, that would mean that there are 2 real solutions. If the value is equal to 0, that would mean that there's only 1 solution. If it is a negative discriminant, that would mean that there are 0 real solutions. However, there are probably 2 complex solutions. I've seen this on the test, and you should know this. Okay, one crucial thing that I forgot to mention in this module part of the SAT math portion is exponential growth and decay. So these two things are different, but they have a similar equation. So we start with the function, which is the initial amount times something to the power of kt. And it is the same thing for decay. What's different is inside the parentheses. So it's 1 plus r in here. So this has to be greater than 1. And then this is 1 minus r. This has to be less than 1 in order to be decay. Okay. So for exponential growth and decay, it's never going to be very straightforward, but it's important that you remember this equation and review these concepts, okay? Okay, so those two are going to make up most of the exam. So that's going to be 70%. Now let's move on to the other 2 sections, or the other 2 topics. Ratios, percentages, probability. This part makes up about 15% of the test. So we should know the definition of frequency. If you're looking at a data set, how many times a certain value shows up in that data set. Probability when given a table. Finding probability when given a word problem. We're talking about probability. What is the probability of a certain event? It is the number of outcomes of the event E in the data set over the number of total outcomes. Now look at these practice problems, pause it, try it out if you want, and come back. What is the probability of selecting a red tile? That is 30, because that is the total amount of red, over 100, which is the total amount. Simplify that to be 3/10 or 0.3. Which of the following is the best estimate of the total number of Spanish Club students who intend to enroll in the study program? Probability of the enrollment would be 0.2, and we have to figure out what the numerator is given a denominator. So basic algebra here, 55 times 0.2 is 11. So we solve that equation. Okay. Mean / average. Here's the formula for that. I would just review that. Might ask you for the mean, and I would hop on Desmos right away. Percentages and ratios. So find the ratio of something to something given a data set, or given this ratio, how many type A's are there given that there are 4 type B's. Okay. Now, if we're talking about percentages, we can have out of 300 samples, 80% was a success. So we would do 300 times 0.8 to get the answer, which is 240. Geometry and trigonometry, we have finding area or perimeter of a shape. You're going to read the question first, of course, and it's going to ask you find the area. Go back to the reference table and double check if it's there. Perimeter, I would review on finding the perimeter of certain shapes. You're just adding up all of the side lengths, calling it a day, right? Finding the volume. If it's asking you to find the volume, it's most likely in the reference table. SOHCAHTOA, so sine, cosine, tangent. I would review this. Similar triangles. So the definition of a similar triangle is that all of the triangles will have the same angle. They will have different side lengths, but they have the same angle. Given that the similar triangles have the same angle, the side lengths are proportional to each other. Okay. Finding angles of triangles. So given 2 angles of a triangle, find the third one, subtract from 180. Hop on Desmos. Don't do it in your head. Just hop on Desmos real quick and speedy type, right? Equation of a circle. It's not given to you in the reference table, so review this equation. There should be like 1 or 2 questions on that. Types of triangles, isosceles, equilateral, right? Remember the definition of those, as you'll probably get, they'll probably ask specific questions on those. So finding a midpoint and finding a distance, this is in the context of the coordinate plane. So from one point to the next point, find the midpoint. From one point to the next point, find the distance. Here are the 2 equations. I would memorize them and practice working through them if you haven't already, and if you feel like you need a refresh. Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That should be important. However, don't let that mess you up, because that can't be applied to all triangles. It can only be applied to right triangles. So remember that for right triangles only. And then finding the arc length and the area of a sector. The arc length, you would compare it to the circumference equation, or the circumference formula, and the sector area, you would compare it to the area formula of the circle. So if a sector is, or if a circle is divided into 6 pieces and you're trying to find one of the pieces, you're trying to find the sector area, you would take all of the area and divide it by 6. Okay. That is all of the topics that I noticed were on the SAT. So as a reminder, you should review any of those topics if you need reviewing. Okay, so that completes my video. I hope this was helpful. At the end of the day, the best way to practice, or the best way to study, is to practice, not to watch these videos, and I understand that. But I hope this served as a guideline on where to start, where to study, knowing all of the topics on the exam. My next video is going to be me working out a practice SAT math test, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. Good luck, you guys. Thanks for watching. Keep sliving, slaying, sloving.